Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Stormblade, the new improved version of my old Stormbringer build that was a stamina DPS, but now I've changed to the Stormblade, which is a stamina sort DPS build for normal dungeons, vet dungeons, hard mode dungeons, and normal trials. That's what this build is set up for right now, but with some adjustments you can make it vet trial capable. So yeah, it's pretty fun. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that first. So the reason I made a lot of these builds for this update is to give players builds that'll help them get into in-game. That's it. None of these builds are competitive, none of them are in-game meta. They're just builds that I created to give people something to play at like normal difficulty, vet difficulty, hard mode difficulty of dungeons, you know, normal trial difficulty, and then with adjustments, especially on the DPS, into vet mode. So yeah, so let's get right into the Stormblade itself. So it is an Orc Sorcerer stamina DPS build. As you can see, we have 11,000 magicka, 17k health, 36k stamina with a 1700 stam recovery. We also have a 3,383 weapon damage with a 37% crit. The crit looks low, I know, and then when you use a potion, I do want to show you guys this so you guys can see for yourselves. It is a low crit, but don't stress that. It does get better. So, moving on, we have an 11,000 spell resistance with a 13,000 physical resistance. We are running the Warrior Mundus Stone. We have Bound Armaments, which gives us minor resolve. And then we are running Dubious Cameron Throne with increased stamina, max health, and max stamina recovery. Or stamina recovery, not max stam recovery. So yeah, really good setup here. Now, the cool thing is with this build is I can actually do something. I'm going to go ahead and do it because I realized how much recovery I already have. I can actually do this. Now, because I have a much higher weapon damage here, I can actually go and do something else, which a lot of people would probably think I'm crazy for. And if you look, I went to 3153. I actually took the weapon damage almost to exactly what it was before this. So I'm not worried too much about that. So with this setup, you actually get a better crit, better weapon damage, decent stam recovery, same stats here as you guys can see. But let's go ahead and take a look at the gear now. We are running a two-piece Stormfist, heavy and light. And I did this for a reason because I wanted to show some people some stuff. So on the light shoulders, you want to have it stamina, divines, the helm, you want to have heavy divines with tri-stats in it. Now with the other set we're running a 5-piece Hunting's Rage with tri-stats in the heavy, in the chest and the legs, and then in the smaller pieces, stamina, and all of it needs to be divines to give you the greatest benefit from it. Moving on to the jewelry, we are running a 3-piece agility set. That's the other reason why I switched to this, was because we already have a really good stam recovery from wearing this monster set and the Dubious Cameron Throne food. We are running 3 weapon damage on here. You guys saw me put the 3rd one in. And then on top of that, we do get a higher crit when we use our food, plus a decent amount of weapon damage. So moving on down here, we do have 2 weapons, both crafted, master maelstrom, but we do have a Rubedite great sword with a crusher enchant, and then a bow with a weapon damage enchant, both infused. Now, I am, after this is done, at the end of this video, I am going to show you guys how you can change this build and make it more more in-game, like I said, ready. So let's go ahead and take a look at the skills, shall we? So moving on to the skills, we're going to go through the passives first. On my Magic Sorc, I did it a little different, but get all your passives from your race or your class, so that way you get all the benefits from it. On the weapons, get the two-handed and the bow passives. Make sure you max those out. So that way you get all the benefits from it. And then on armor, light armor, you don't really need the top two, but you definitely want spell warding for this. And then on the medium armor, you want all of them. And then on the heavy armor, you just need the top three. Moving on to the world skills, you can be a werewolf with this build, just letting you know. And if you want to be a vampire with it, you can as well. That's going to give you extra stam recovery and some extra mitigation when you're below 55% health. But you do take increased fire damage. On to the guild skills. Fighters Guild, you want to make sure you get all the passives. Mages Guild, you just need the Persuasive Will if you want it. And then Undaunted, you want to make sure you get both these. On to the Alliance skills, make sure you get these two skills, even though you're not probably going to use Razor Caltrops. But if you do need it, you do have access to it. Moving on to the racial skills. Make sure you get all the racials for this, especially for being an orc. You want the Swift Warrior to increase your melee attack damage by 4%. You also get increased movement speed by 10% and reduce cost and sprint by 12%. Unflinching gives you extra healing received and health recovery. Now, don't worry about the health recovery, but the healing received really plays into it. And then the 6% max health and stam really helps with this build. Moving on to the crafting Alchemy. You definitely want to get medicinal use. This really can help you out in the long run. So, because it reduces the cooldown times of your potions. And then with provisioning, you want to get Gourmand and Connoisseur because at the end game you will be running dual stat food. So this is like the normal dual stat food, not the other one, Dubious Cameron Throne. Alright, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at our skills. We are running Carve on the first ability. This does really good damage up front, good damage over time, but it applies to multiple targets in front of you, maximum of 6, and it grants you minor heroism, which gives you increased ultimate gen. It's going to make it really easy for you to use the ultimates with this. Next up, we have Wrecking Blow, which does a lot of damage, and it also grants you Empower for your next ability, or your next attack, which will be a heavy attack anyways. So really good. And then we are running Executioner, which is actually an execute. When the enemy's below 50% health, this thing deals 350% more damage, which is really good when you get there. And then we have Resolving Vigor. Now, you don't need Resolving Vigor. If you're running in a group that already has enough Resolving Vigor, put Caltrops here. That's why we have them both unlocked. And then that way you get damage instead of a heal. The next ability you have is Bound Armaments. Now this is a great ability for you because it will be activated at all times. It gives you increased physical resistance by 1320 by granting a minor ward, and it also increases your max stamina by 8%. On top of that, it increases your light and heavy attack damage by 11%, which really helps out. Next up, we have Flawless Dawnbreaker. This increases your weapon damage by 5%, and it also gives you a decent ultimate for damage, and it's really cheap, as you can see, 107. But that's not the ultimate we're going to be using mostly. This is mainly for trash fights. The one we're going to be using on bosses is the one on the back bar. On the back bar, we have Rearming Trap. Now, if you guys don't know how Rearming Trap does, is it sets itself, and then it goes off, and then it resets itself, and then goes off again. So it will apply this twice. It does 3,000 damage up front, 8,166 physical damage over 8 seconds. It also immobilizes targets, and it also grants you minor force, increasing your critical damage done by 10%. So, really, really good ability. Next up, we have Poison Injection. This does great damage up front and good damage over time. And it also does increased damage when the enemy's below 50% health. But they have to, it's like, it's up to 260%, but it depends on where their health level's at. The lower their health, the more damage it does. So the closer it gets to that 260%. Next up, we have Endless Hail. This just does a lot of damage over time, so just a really good ability to have. And then we have Hurricane, which does good damage over time. Over 15, it does 936 damage every 1 second for 15 seconds. But as it gets bigger, the damage increases to 150%. And up to 9 meters in size, so it gets a lot bigger range. It also grants you Major Ward and Major Resolve. You want this up all the time. So, like every rotation, you'll be recasting this pretty much. Lastly, we have Bound Armaments again to give us that 8% stamina and that increased 11%, but mainly for the max stamina. Now it comes down to the final ultimate we will be using on big bosses. and that is Toxic Barrage. Toxic Barrage does 46k damage over 4.1 seconds, and then over the next 8 seconds after it ends, it does 34,895 poison damage over 8 seconds. Now, I'm going to just show you guys this real quick so you guys can see. This is with a potion, by the way. So this does 49,000, 50,000 damage, and then 37,000 damage over that. And then if you have Spell Power Cure, it's actually going to do 40k damage over 8 seconds. But this is kind of nice, so... Alright, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the champion points. And just like all of my other stamina DPS builds I've released, it's the same setup, guys. So we have 56 into Ironclad. This reduces the damage you take from direct damage by 20%. That does stack with a couple other ones here. We have 3 points in the medium armor focus, which increases physical resistance by 312. It's not much, but it helps. Then we have 56 in the thick skin, reducing damage taken from damage over time effects by 20%. And then 43 into hardy and 43 into elemental expert. These basically reduce physical poison, disease damage, and then this one reduces flame, frost, shock, and magic damage. These do stack with thick skin and Ironclad, just to let you know. Moving on to the last one, we have 16 into Expert Defender, which reduces damage taken from light and heavy attacks by 10%. And then we have 23 into Quick Recovery, increasing our healing received by 6%. We are an orc, so we get 5% healing received, along with an extra 6%. That's 11% healing received. Really good. Alright, moving on over here, we have 23 into Warlord, which reduces our break free cost by 10%, and then 20 into Sprinter, reducing our sprint cost by 12%. We also get 10% or 12% from the Swift thing, so we actually have a 24% reduced cost in sprinting. And then moving on over here, we have 75 into Mooncalf. This increases stamina recovery by 14%, which we really need the high stamina recovery, so we get more stamina back with our heavy attacks, by the way. It doesn't apply to this, but I'm not going to go over it right now. Tenacity, you get increased with the 43 points. You get 10% return from your heavy attacks, which stacks with another 30%, which is a 40% increase in total. Really good for having that higher stamina recovery because it gives you more resources back. Moving over here, we have 56 into Tumbling, which reduces your dodge roll cost by 20%. With the wearing medium armor, you get another 20, which is 40. It's crazy. Shadow Ward reduces your block cost by 10%, which is good. These things here, what a lot of people don't look at is these things here save you stamina. Okay? Because you're lowering the cost of things, which saves you stamina when you need to do these things, like dodging or blocking or breaking free or sprinting even. So it's all about management, resource management here on stamina. Into the blue tree, we have nothing here, but into this one, we have 35 into Physical Weapon Expert. Most of the damage you do is light and heavy attacks. Like, a lot of the damage you do is through heavy attacks. So, and abilities, but having it increased by 20% really helps. We have 51 into Master at Arms, increasing our direct damage done by 19%. All heavy attacks, light attacks, are direct damage. So that's a total of 39%. Moving on over here, we have 43 into Mighty, which increases physical, poison, disease damage, which also stacks, by the way, with this, with these two. So it's actually a 49% increase. And you are a sword, so you get 5% increase in physical damage. So that's another, extra damage there. We also have 56. What in the heck is going on? 56 into Precise Strikes here, increasing your critical damage done. With Rearming Trap, you get another 10%. That's 30% or 80% increase in critical damage. Really good. And then 51 into Thaumaturge, increasing your damage done with damage over time effects by 19%, which really just kind of helps out with bleeds and your poison arrows, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really cool. All right, so let's go ahead and see this this build in action, which I need to go ahead and pop a potion. We're gonna go ahead and do Hurricane, pop our trap out. I'm just gonna do a full rotation. I'm not even gonna show you guys like the rotation itself because you guys can pretty much see it for yourselves here. Oh my god, I screwed up there. Oh. Sorry guys, with that, I did make a mistake on that one, and I did it again. And there we go. So that time we did 17,021 damage over the rotation, which isn't too bad, guys. My last one was 17,118 with this, and it turned out really good. I think that the damage itself worked out really good for this build. So if you guys are wondering how to set this build up for in-game trials, it's really quite simple. All you have to do is change out the tri-stat glyphs to max stamina glyphs, and then switch your food to dual stat food. Instead of Dubious Cameron Throne, you are going to run the Braised Rabbit, which gives you max health, max stamina, and then with that, you're going to change out the two weapons here, one to Master, one to Maelstrom. So this is going to go to a Master Sword infused with Crusher Enchant. This is going to go to a Master Bow infused with weapon damage. And that's all you really need to do with the build. If you do this, you will still be running around 16, 17k health with a 37, 38k magicka. And then you'll have the same amount of weapon damage that you see here. And then when you're buffed up with the potion, you go to 3670. And with the, you go up to 4k. 4k weapon damage is good for this, but if you can get more out of it, go for it. Go for more weapon damage. And if you really want to get this build really good, try to use another set that gives you spell crit and spell damage. Or, it's not spell, weapon crit and weapon damage here. And you can run, there's another setup you can run. You can run Vicious Ophidian with this, which is really, really good. Because if you run 3 pieces Vicious Ophidian with dual wield Vicious Ophidian and then the Maelstrom Bow, you get really good DPS out of it. Because on the front bar, you get insane crits. So, but that's pretty much it for the Stormblade, guys. I hope you guys like this build. I love playing this. I play it on live. I just don't have the Master Maelstrom. But I run the same setup I'm running right now pretty much. And it's working awesome. So, yeah, really great. But like I said, if you guys like this build, you can hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds or just more videos by me, you can hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.